Today we're going to be talking about the golden rule of cannabis addiction. I have tried many different techniques and mental frameworks and adjustments, and I've gone through real extreme measures and also too subtle of ones which didn't really do anything. And there are definitely some things that I can share with you guys that at least it just helps, with that uphill battle of addiction, especially if you're trying to stop. Now, if you're not trying to stop, you're right in the middle of a bad habit, or you don't even maybe look at it as bad, then say, keep going. No, seriously, enjoy this moment. Because there will be a stage in your life where you're not going to enjoy it anymore, and it's going to be a problem, and then you're going to think, oh yeah, I can quit, and then you actually try to quit, and then you realize, hang on a sec, go with me. And then you need to have special tools and techniques that unhook it, and then make sure you don't put yourself in a position where you get hooked again. So the golden rule is this, and that is to delay your first hit as long as possible. And this is relevant to the macro and the microcosm of your life, because as you all know, brain development is significantly affected by early green use. Dude, it's so funny. I'm finding myself self-censoring because I say the W word all the time. I say weed. But every time I say it, I have to blank it out because YouTube is just really strict on this type of content. Even if it's this, actually trying to help you to stop, YouTube is still nah, not for children, mate. And it's oh, YouTube, if you just knew what children were doing. I started early. It's already too late. I can't go back in time and just slap the J out of young Tom's hands and be like, stop it. He probably wouldn't have listened anyway. So it is the way it is, but the reason why I say delay that first J, even if you're right in the middle of the addiction, I'm sure you've even had this experience of when you have that first J, your willpower goes significantly down, and then your ability to deny and resist future Js that night. I'm very well experienced of talking to long-term cannabis addicts. So I don't know if this is a golden rule for all addictions. It probably is to some degree, but I'm specifically talking about El Verde. And we all know that the best J of the day is the first one. It always is, because your brain's lucid. It doesn't have all these cannabinoid molecules swimming around in a sea of euphoria. It's sober. It wants a little something. And when you have that first one, it's just, but then, half an hour passes and you're oh, okay, I kind of feel worse than I did before. I need to pick me up. And then your second J, it's it doesn't quite take you to the same level as the first one. And that's the same thing on the macro lens. I don't think anything would have gotten me as high as my first few Js, or at least my first couple months of smoking, I was a kid too, let's be fair. But let's give you something practical outside of just saying delay the first thing. And this goes for anything, whether it's delaying a cookie or a soft drink or another substance that you're hooked on, or scrolling on Instagram, any of these things. I promise you this will change your life if you start to implement this. And I know this is rich coming from someone who's still smoking till this day, much less of course, but just because I have this huge addictive hook on one substance, it doesn't mean that everything I know about addiction is just, no, doesn't count. Sorry, mate, you don't know nothing. But the truth is, I've quit many addictions that most of the planet struggles with so much. So why is it that I can overcome pretty hardcore addictions? But then why is it that I'm still, hooked on this one particular habit? Well, we're not going to get into that, but I will just briefly say that we all have our struggles. We all have things that come easy to us, come naturally to us, and other things that's it's a little bit more difficult, especially when you start at a young age. Dude, I smoked up for the first time 2 decades ago. And I don't want to make this an excuse of I'm addicted because of this. I actually should probably stop myself right now. This is why recording videos is so good, because you get to call yourself out. You speak out loud and then you realize, oh, actually, no, that was silly to say. But in terms of a more practical tip of delaying that whatever thing that you're struggling with, don't make this a big mountain. Don't be oh, I'm going to delay this 24 hours. It's too big. It's too big of an obstacle which kind of drains your willpower in a sense, you know? It's like, oh, your motivation drops. So at the very least, just delay it for 60 seconds. Literally count to 60. And if you make it to 60, you know what? I'm going to delay for 5 minutes. And to make it easy, you know what? Let me go for a run first. You know what? Let me make a video first, at least. If I really, really want to have a J, I was actually just smatting out. I'm like, you know what? At least let me do a video. And then after this, I might be like, oh, you know what? Let me do a gym workout. Let me go get something to eat. Let me write first. It becomes easier over time. The first, like when you're really, really, really into it and you have zero willpower, that's when you have to just small incremental steps. 60 seconds. Count to 60, bro. Take some deep breaths. You'll be surprised that the more high you get on your own supply, the less you need external substances. And I know this is absolutely hypocritical coming from someone who, like, I'm still partaking in the green. But I also want to be more honest. This is a challenge for myself to be okay with showing these parts of myself that honestly, I'm embarrassed of. It'll get better over time. I'm just saying. I'm making this video because I know that just because I struggle with this certain thing, it doesn't mean that I can't speak about it, when in reality, there's probably a lot more nuances that I would know that even an expert wouldn't, who hasn't personally gone through these journeys. But it's just, you know, it is the way it is. Let's be honest here. The more you don't delay, the more you just act on that immediate gratification pull, then the more your life is going to be pulled that direction. And immediate pleasure doesn't always equal to great results, you know. And when you have that first J or substance or whatever you're hooked on, even Instagram scrolling, like when you do that like straight in the morning, we can even look at that as Instagram scrolling. Like if you wake up, you're like groggy, you're basically just coming out of your dream state, and you just go to your phone and just... Like that's not, to me, that's not much different than smoking a J in the morning. But the point of this is like if you do it in the morning, as soon as you wake up, then the rest of the day, good luck not going on Instagram and mindlessly scrolling. You have a certain amount of willpower and it drains throughout the day, whether it's a small task like ordering a pizza or a big life decision. Same kind of energy. So you got to be very careful of what you put in your energy towards. Try to delay it, even if it's a minute, because a minute, anyone can do a minute. You can do a minute. And then you do a minute every day, then that goes to 2 minutes, and goes to 5 minutes, and then it becomes, oh, you know what, I'm just going to do this whole routine, I'm going to do this. And that's where the next part of this golden rule comes into play, is replacing it with something that you enjoy, that you genuinely enjoy, a creative habit, or not even just creativity, but I would even throw in exercise. And I know this isn't necessarily part of the do something that you enjoy, but I promise you, even if you're a kind of person who hates exercise, it's bullcrap, because your body loves exercise. It does. And every time you do exercise, you get at least 5x back in terms of units of energy. Your health increases, you feel better, your willpower increases, you'll be able to breathe in deeper, which gets you higher on your natural supply. Everyone benefits from exercising. That's not like a personality type. Oh, you're an ENTJ. Oh, lucky you. That means you don't have to exercise. Oh, I wish I was your personality type. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Everyone needs to do some sort of movement and resistant training to some degree, and it will just help you so much with this. And remember, we have cannabinoid receptors in our bodies. There are ways to tap in to this highness. Again, this all started from just delaying it 1 minute, then delaying it 2 minutes. And then it gets easier and easier over time. And again, you add certain, like, all right, let me do a piece of work. Let me write in my journal, or let me do this. And then it becomes easier and easier, and to the point you don't have to use willpower. Because like if you're wrestling against your willpower all day, every day, and you're trying to find this motivation where it's a struggle constantly, then it's not going to be sustainable. That's why people relapse. Addiction is supposed to be easy to let go of by the end. Whether it's because of a rock bottom, high level suffering ceiling that you're like, nah, no more, and you let it go. Even though some people kind of go back in the future because of unresolved traumas, and that's where it comes, you know, there's so many layers. And then some people tie in their deep psychological issues and trauma with a certain addiction, but sometimes it's as simple as it's just a habit. I feel like at this very point, I could be completely talking out of my ass, but this is how I feel at this moment, and that this green addiction is really 80% habit. Like I do it just because my body's just used to doing it. I'm just in the motion, even when I'm feeling great, even when I'm feeling energetic, even when I've done a workout, even when, you know what I mean? Like now I'm feeling much better versus, let's say, when I'm really low energy, depressed, eating like crap. And then that's when obviously the green addiction just ramps up to a whole different level. Whereas now it's like, a couple, right? Just getting less and less. But the feeling of it is like, because before the high would, because I would be down here, right? And when you're down here, when you smoke up, massive difference. You're like, oh, yes. Kind of like you're drowning in the middle of the ocean, you grab onto a life raft and you're like, yes, this feels great. But then as you go from drowning to just feeling better and then eventually you start thriving, feeling more energy, then the green only lifts you up this much. So I feel like I'm kind of here where it's like, it makes me feel, I guess, a little bit better, but not really in some ways. Like I said, this is the habit. So now it's like, okay, it's just a little bit. So it's like, I'm not so desperate for it, right? And again, we have good days and bad, but it's about rewiring your entire relationship until it naturally falls off. I've done this with many addictions in the past, which have just zero struggle with, you know? I don't know, but for whatever reason, chuff is just can be a hard hook to let go of. And so for some people, it's super easy. And if you're one of those people who think of someone like me as weak and pathetic for even being able to be addicted, either you're just completely blind of the bigger picture of what addiction is, especially with the green, or you're just really, really early on in your journey and your ego is so tied up with this identity that anyone that comes with conflicting beliefs is just, blah, screw you piece of crap. You just can't handle it. It's not the it's you. I never once blamed external substances for my problems, but okay, if you want to go that route, fine. Okay, it's okay. It's okay. Why am I responding to imaginary trolls? I've made so many videos on this topic, but I think in the past it's usually like, I'm free from this thing. This is how you do it too. And of course it's embarrassing when you relapse and you're like, oh, now I can't talk about this subject. Oh, how embarrassing. I have to hide myself. Oh, now my self-esteem. Right? And it's like, who cares, man? This is all in my mind, and I think this actually made it much worse, is putting that it's probably my Catholic upbringing, right? That shame, 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 feel bad. Like, you dude, I'm just saying this because, like, again, it's my genetics and how I grew up. There's a huge emotional charge when it comes to this green plant. My mum grew up in Chile, and my wife's Chilean too, and her family said the same thing. Like, they used to refer to this green plant as the devil. Es el diablo. Marihuana es el diablo. Te vuelve loco. Te vas a morir. Vas a hablar con el diablo. Or they'll also call it like brujeria, witchcraft, devil, dog, kill you. I'm basically expressing the basic energy surrounding this. So of course, again, when you put so much charge over this thing, it can be really hard to overcome it. So I've had to basically program myself over the last couple decades, and you know, some techniques work, some principles do, some don't, and then some principles is completely contextual. It depends who you are, where you are in life. And I've said this on the channel before, many years ago, and I'll say it again, and that's that this magical Mary plant isn't exactly free from the same addictive potency as some of the harder substances can be. Because I've done it all, guys. I never once got hooked on any sort of amphetamine. To me, it had an anti-addictive property because how it made me feel the next day and how just strong it is. But then for other people, obviously it ruins their life. For me, it's like, that's so easy. I don't even know how you can get addicted to. And of course I do. I'm saying this from like the more uninformed version of Tom, which is what some people come at with this. Like, oh, how can you even... You can, absolutely. Especially with this plant becoming so super engineered to the point where the percentage of THC is just increasing by the day. And it's like, you know, but again, when, at least how I think of it, when it comes to addiction, it's mostly in your mindset, your identity, and how you relate to this. I think that physical dependency can be very easily overcome with a strong enough mindset. I've done this many times before. It's actually not that hard. It's the little hooks that you add to yourself. And then it's like, oh, okay, I got this. But it's like, oh shit, I got like 50 more. So delay that first J as much as possible. Don't put so much weight on it. Do it to the point where it's easy, where it's like, I can wait 30 seconds. I can count to 30. Come on. If you can't count to 30, like, all right, now we're in really big trouble. But then you start adding things that give you joy on top of this. Feel free to share your stories, whether it's you personally who've gone through this addiction, whether you're in it right now, what are you struggling with, if you've overcome it, what has helped you. Let us know, let's have a conversation. Catch you guys soon. Peace.